Dr. Brown, churches our size, we know need security, but we don't often know what to prioritize, what's realistic, or even really what makes a difference. That's why I want to ask you those questions today.
And that question right there is why this episode matters. I want to welcome you to the Faith Secure podcast, where we are watchful, prayerful, and prepared. I'm Dr. Michael Brown, founder of Faith Secure and president of MDB Consulting Agency. We have a good one today, people. Today's episode is going to be different. We're going to do a reverse interview. Instead of me asking the questions, I'm being interviewed by a church safety manager who represents what many churches are navigating right now. And that's real responsibility with limited resources and a desire to do this the right way. I want to introduce our guest interviewer for this episode. His name is Mr. Marc Ware. Marc is currently the safety officer at Riverside Chapel Seventh-day Adventist Church in Nashville, Tennessee. He has served in this role for 1.5 years. Prior, he served as the assistant safety officer for 2 years. Marc also worked 4 years as the risk manager for the South Central Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, and he was responsible for overseeing insurance and safety for 145 churches and 7 schools covering a 5-state region. He is a dedicated church safety officer committed to creating a safe, welcoming environment for all members, visitors, managing risk, and working closely with church leadership and volunteers to emphasize prevention, awareness, and compassionate response. So, Marc, it's on you, buddy. Let's get started with the first question.
Great, thank you. Dr. Brown, before we get into specifics, what do you see as the biggest challenge churches our size face when it comes to safety and security?
Okay. One of the biggest things that churches face is a lack of clarity, not a lack of care. Because churches care, they don't want anything to happen to the church and the members and the congregation, but they lack clear direction on what does that look like to enhance the security of the church. And often what happens is security often grows reactively instead of being proactive. There's a security event, and then everybody's concerned about security. So churches don't know what order to do things in either. Too much focus is on like technology and physical security apparatus and not the structure of a security program. Most churches, they don't fail at security because they don't care. They fail because they were never given a framework.
Gotcha. What role should pastors and boards realistically play in the church security?
Now, security is a leadership responsibility. Now, boards provide the authority, the policy approval, and the accountability, but the pastors set the tone and the permissions. Okay. Now, the safety managers should never operate in a vacuum. They should operate with the support of the board and the pastor. That's the ideal situation. But when security is treated like a side ministry, it will always be underpowered, undermanned, and underfunded.
If a church our size hasn't done much yet, what would be the first thing that you would recommend we start doing?
A written emergency response plan is the very first thing. And you want to have role clarity, basically who does what and when. Because one plan will beat 10 good ideas. You know, you want to document before you drill so people know exactly what to do and when to do it. An emergency plan in someone's head is not going to save any lives.
Gotcha. Most churches our size rely heavily on volunteers. What are the biggest mistakes you see with volunteers on security teams?
The main thing I see is an overestimation of capabilities. People think that these volunteers will just somehow magically know what to do. You know, and sometimes these people are voted into these positions and there's no screening or vetting of these people for their qualification, no training given, and their roles, the expectations aren't clearly defined. And again, if you're giving them authority to do the job without a policy outlining what the job is. So good intentions does not equal readiness.
Perfect. Understand. One of the areas that's vital and important to a lot of churches is the children's ministry area. What one thing churches underestimate when it comes to children's security areas?
One of the biggest problems in the children's area involving security is familiarity bias. And what I mean by that is, if you are fortunate enough to where there are policies and procedures for access to the children's area, what's the policy for who's allowed in the restricted area, who's allowed to pick up the children, things of that nature. A lot of times they'll know, oh, that's brother so-and-so come to pick up his kid, or that's the cousin of so-and-so, and that person is not on the list or doesn't have authorization, but because they know them, they'll just let them into the area, and that could cause problems. Gotcha. Just the same thing, like I said, that's informal exceptions where if this person makes an exception and then another person that's volunteered in that area makes an exception, then another person makes an exception. Now you got 3 exceptions, or people that are allowed in the area and they shouldn't be. And here's another problem too, is custody assumptions. Because just because you know somebody is one of the parents, if they're not on the list or authorized to get that kid, then they shouldn't be allowed to come and get that kid from the children's area. That should be clearly defined, because there could be custody disputes that the church doesn't know about. So that is very important, that you have who's authorized to get the kid. And here's one other thing I wanted to mention too, Mark, is volunteer discomfort with enforcing the policies in the children's area. Whereas, say if somebody's not on the list and they're there to pick up a kid, I would say a large number of volunteers don't feel comfortable enforcing the policy because they don't want pushback from the person that's standing in front of them. So that's an issue. So that's children's ministry. The biggest thing is where hospitality, sometimes being nice, will override safety, and that could be dangerous.
Got it. One of the things that will come up quite a bit is budget. How much money does the church have?
Yes.
If the budget is tight or non-existent, what happens? What can be done?
Well, one thing I always say, and this is one of my catchphrases, is leadership decisions cost less than equipment. So if you are making the right decisions as far as training, drills, policies, and procedures, those things typically don't cost a whole lot of money. Now, putting in a video surveillance system or a camera system, or putting in biometric locks on all the doors, that can become pricey. Mm-hmm. But how much does it cost to write an emergency response plan or an evacuation plan? How much does it cost to train the greeters what to look for and what suspicious behavior possibly looks like? Mm-hmm. So leadership costs less than equipment. And again, policies, training, and clarity don't cost a lot of money. And the presence of those policies, that matters more than tech. Tech is just a tool. You can't build your policy relying solely on just technology. Okay. And so I would just, my sound bite to that would be, preparedness is not about money. It's really about intentionality. Leadership has to be intentional when it comes to security.
Okay. Sounds good. It's very helpful. Mm-hmm. I want to run a scenario past you.
Okay, let's do it.
Here's what kind of happens. We're at church. It's the second service. We're at capacity. Mm-hmm. A volunteer notices someone bypassing the children's check-in area and headed toward restricted space. What should happen next?
Okay, well, first, and this is a biggie, someone should engage that person and ask them just a simple, can I help you? And find out what exactly they're trying to do. And again, this is where training kicks in too. That person needs to be trained on looking for unusual behavior, concealed hands or bulky clothing, or emotional distress. And there needs to be a policy that when they approach this person and it seems like they notice a problem, there needs to be a communication policy in place, or who they notify to come and help them address the situation with this person that appears to be suspicious or in a restricted space, unauthorized.
Okay. So, Dr. Brown, I'm going to throw some fire questions at you. So
All right, come
almost
on.
like one answer
Okay.
responses. So let's get started with the first one. One policy every church our size needs.
Emergency response plan.
One thing churches spend too much time worried about.
Is being prepared a lack of faith?
One thing they didn't know, one thing they don't worry about enough.
Is being prepared.
Okay. Watchful, prayerful, or prepared? What's usually the weakest?
I think you're going to sense a theme here, Mark, is prepared. Most churches they are watchful, and of course churches pray, but most of them aren't prepared.
If you could leave one message with church leaders listening, what would it be?
Okay, I'm going to drop several points here. One is security is stewardship. It's taking care of the congregation and the flock that you've been blessed to have. So pastors and board leadership needs to realize that security is stewardship, and that preparation actually honors the people that come to your church. You're showing them that their safety and security is important and that it matters and is something that should be protected. Also, I would say that faith and responsibility can both coexist. They don't have to operate independently of each other. Because you're operating responsibly and taking steps to secure the church and empower the congregation to take ownership of the security of the church, that's not a lack of faith. Faith is you let God do his part. As they said, faith without works is what?
Dead.
That's right. So you have to do the work, and then leadership sets the outcomes. If leadership is proactive and takes security seriously, the probability of a positive outcome, if there's any security events, is greatly increased. So that's the closing message that I would say.
Okay, great. That kind of wraps up the questions that I have for you. And I just want to thank you personally. You had the opportunity to come to our church on site, gave us some valuable advice that we have put in place. So we appreciate you in an ongoing relationship that I know we're going to have with you.
Oh, I appreciate you. Now I appreciate the kind words too, Mark. All right. Being watchful, prayerful, and prepared isn't fear. Folks, it's faith in action. I want to thank Marc Ware for being our guest interviewer on this episode. Mark, you did a great job.
Thank you, sir.
I want to thank you too, the listeners and the viewers, for joining us on this unique episode of the Faith Secure podcast. If today's conversation helped bring clarity to your role as a leader or a safety manager, please feel free to share it with someone who needs to hear it. You can connect with Faith Secure on all the social media platforms. You can also reach out to us directly at mdbconsultingagency.com/Faith Secure. Until next time, please stay watchful, prayerful, and prepared. Take care and God bless.